And I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king over here against the day. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
Good night, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite sports show, This Just In. Unfortunately, we don't have our host, Marsha, but we have that guy, Neil Hoyt. I am Justin Marvel, and we are going to get right at it. The NBA Finals are here, Neil, and that means your Lakers are back in it after, what, a 10-year absence, Neil?
All
We
right,
can
all
just-
right. Just
I
don't
won't
let's
remind-
don't let's get bogged down in dates.
or semantics or facts or that sort of stuff. So
Right,
we're
no.
going to jump right into this, Neil. Break down this series and tell me, why should I believe your Lakers are going to win these finals?
Well, first thing, let me say, I think because of the situation with the pandemic and the bubble, I think we've actually seen the two best teams in the NBA competing in the finals. I know some years we see it, some years we don't. But I feel like from a pure basketball standpoint, a purist standpoint, I find we have the two best teams in the NBA competing for the championship. Now, on paper, you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, you see they have AD, you see they have Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, that three-headed monster led by AD. That should prove some matchup problems for Miami, who only has Bam Adebayo as well as Kelly Olynyk. They do have Solomon Hill, but I mean, in terms of marking, instead of guarding, the bigger forwards and centers, it's going to prove challenging. But having said that, I do believe Miami does have that je ne sais quoi, that,
Ooh, some French here.
Yeah, just a little bit, just a taste. But no, Miami does have those intangibles where they're grit and grind, and you would focus on Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, but anybody can step up to the plate and score. But what the Lakers need to do, though, I mean, they have LeBron James, of course. I don't expect him to be any different than stellar, especially with how he is going to adapt his game given his age and the situations that present themselves within the series against Miami. AD is interesting to see. It's going to be his first finals. It's going to be interesting to see how he can, shine as he has done so far throughout the whole playoffs, especially against Denver. But my concern with the Lakers is as usual, the others. You have Kyle Kuzma, you have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who has been shooting pretty well. You have Danny Green, he is missing. He's on a milk carton. They're still looking for him. And Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee. You have Markieff Morris. You have Alex Caruso, the Eagle.
I know. I just got that reference.
Yeah. Right, but they have to be focused. Now we've seen that they've been focused throughout the entire playoffs, and that's why they're in the NBA Finals, right? My concern going into the playoffs was that they have a lot of guys that were not necessarily focused or can lose focus from time to time. Now, defensively, I expect Miami to bring it. Even though they're going to be outmatched in certain key positions, I do expect them to be all in team defense and clog up the lane and make it difficult for certain players, double team to get the ball to the Lakers' best players. So it'll be interesting to see both on offense and defense. Offensively, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma has to show up. Alex Caruso, he has to he's been playing really well on the defense, but if I can get a bit more from him on the offensive, great. But in the end, I think that it comes down to the Lakers defending Miami. You obviously know about Jimmy Butler, you know about Bam Adebayo, but the discipline to rotate the basketball and get out to shooters like Tyler Hero, to get to shooters like Duncan Robinson, to make it difficult on Goran Dragic. That's the thing. That was the downfall for Boston, because at the end of the day, you double teaming and you trap in and you're trying to get the ball to players' hands. But, sometimes the ball rotates to Iguodala, who hit 4 threes last game. It was 4 threes, right?
Yeah, 4 threes. Reality, Neil, if I was Brad Stevens, that would have to beat me. The unfortunate situation, it did beat you. But,
That's what I'm saying. It did. So I don't have any problems. This series is going to be a great series. First things first, as I said, both teams are right where they're supposed to be. It was no easy road, in my estimation, for these teams to get there, simply because of the conditions in the bubble and everything like that. But it is going to come down to LA focusing and making sure that everybody who isn't named LeBron James, even Frank Vogel and his coaching staff, they have to be on point and make adjustments and understand that Miami is a team where they can kill you from any different angle. And I think they're the most dangerous team out of the entire NBA simply because they play all in defense. It is gritty, it is grimy. They have no problem, as Jim Butler said, playing in the mud, mucking it up, making it dirty. And I really want to see if AD is that kind of player. If he could do it. We also know in the series against Denver, Dwight Howard and Markieff Morris were the guys really mucking it up. To a lesser extent, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Alex Caruso. But I really want to see what AD looks like when it's really dirty and grimy and guys are trapping you and making it really difficult. When he was being trapped in the series against Denver, he proved that he can make some decisions, but oftentimes he looked really shook and he turned over the ball or took bad shots. So I really want to see how he's going to handle this pressure. And the other is just to see how they're going to handle it on offense and defense. Can they hit the open shots on the rotation, especially if they're trapping LeBron James and or AD? Can they deliver on the defensive end to understand anybody can be the top scorer for that night? It's not always going to be Bam Adebayo, and it's not always going to be Jimmy Butler. Tyler Hero exploded for 37 points against Denver, and I know that nobody on the scouting report expected that from him. So it's just about discipline, focus, and I believe if I were to give a prediction, which I know you're going to ask before, I do think, and I also want to apologize to Larry Marshall, who I did say his Miami Heat were going to make the finals. I have the Lakers in 6.
In 6 and not 5. 6.
And 5, yes.
Okay, Neil, so I like to bring my funny numbers.
Of course. You're the numbers guy.
So I'll start here, Neil. Did you know that the Miami Heat are the 15th to reach the NBA Finals with a different score in each of the previous 3 rounds? So Goran Dragic led them in scoring in the opening round against Indiana. Jimmy Butler then against Milwaukee, and Bam Adebayo in these conference finals against Boston. Now you'd ask, why is that stat? Why am I bringing that up? The previous 4 teams who did that all won the NBA titles. Each of the previous 4. So I say that to say, Neil, everything I look at points towards Miami winning this series. No, everything I look at, every number, every stat, everything I crunch, all the numbers point.
Everything you've seen.
Everything. I'm done. I've not gone to my prediction yet.
I was just about to say you gotta check your sources because I don't think you see everything.
I'm gonna show you now. Every number I've crunched, everything I've looked, every scenario, everything points towards a Miami victory. So first, I'm gonna start with, as you said, the individual matchups. How I like Miami so much in these finals, You, as you know, you pointed out, you're a very top-heavy team. Your best players, at the end of the day, the best players in this series all belong to the Lakers, and that would be LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Whichever order you want to put them in, whichever you say is, 1 or 2 or 1A or 1B. Those 2 best players in the series do reside with the Lakers.
Right.
After that, I would say, the reality is Miami is the better team. And as much as the best players are Laker players, I think Miami can match up well with those players. First, let's start with Anthony Davis. He had a phenomenal conference finals. I think he shot something like 54% while averaging 31 points per game. There was one concern or two where AD came for me. He did not rebound the ball well at all.
Oh my goodness.
There was a game he had 2 rebounds. I think even in the closeout game he only
There
had
was a
5
game he had
rebounds.
1 rebound. There was a game he had 1 rebound.
And granted, that may not pose much of an issue against the smaller Miami team because it seems AD is more concerned in transition. But the real concern for me where Anthony Davis is, the situation arises is that as much as he shot 54% against the Nuggets, I think he only shot 25% in the entire series while being guarded by Paul Millsap, as opposed to 65% against the rest, namely Jokic and Jeremy Grant. And Jeremy Grant can't match up with Anthony Davis, and Jokic is too slow-footed, and that's a bad matchup. Again, I say that to say Bam Adebayo, I think, is an extremely good one-on-one matchup for Anthony Davis. He is quick-footed. I think about the same 6'9", 6'10" as Anthony Davis. Extremely long arms. As we saw with the game-saving block in Game 2 against Boston.
Yeah.
Tremendous rim defender. So that being said, the Heat may not have to bring extra help for Bam to play Anthony Davis. I think they can live with that matchup straight up one-on-one. And with that matchup, I think they can honestly do the same with your other best player in LeBron James. Now, again, I was watching Sports Center today, and they brought up this stat. Since 2012, Jimmy Butler and Jay Crowder are ranked 2 and 3 in terms of field goal percentage defense against LeBron James. Both hold him under 50. I think number 1 was Draymond Green at some 38 or 39%. If that is the case, and then obviously they have Andre Iguodala coming off the bench, and he already got a Finals MVP for the Golden State Warriors. Simply because
he does, because I love from Iguodala, I love that strip down that he does whenever you're going to the whenever you're in the post and you try to carry him in and turn over either shoulder. He's very good at stripping the ball
down. So they have the defenders because we know Andre Iguodala won a Finals MVP just for the work that he did marking LeBron James. Was it in 2015 NBA Finals?
Right.
So that also shows me they have the bodies to throw at LeBron James. You don't have to wear down Jimmy Butler for long stretches, because then you could switch Jay Crowder onto him or bring Andre Iguodala off the bench. But more worrisome still, Neil, for your Lakers, is that the Miami Heat over the course of these playoffs, for me, have been the best team. They've lost only 3 games, just like you, but at no point in time have they trailed in any series in terms of games won. And they've hit 20 more threes than you. You will say you are big, and granted, yes, you are. You have Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, and JaVale McGee. But I brought up the 20 more three stat to show you Miami typically doesn't want to score in the paint. Outside of Jimmy, Bam, and Goran Dragic to a lesser extent, you know that they want to shoot the deep ball.
I do agree with that.
You have had some issues defending the perimeter. I don't have to bring that up. Particularly as your best perimeter defender is not playing in this series. In Avery Bradley, he opted out for family concerns over COVID-19.
Right.
That is a cause of concern for me, and especially considering when you look at the defensive matchups that Lakers are going to have to align themselves. Typically, LeBron, because he's year 17, played some ridiculous amount of playoff minutes. There were almost 60,000 playoff minutes. Gone. He's never lost in playoff. Never lost in the first round. Sorry, it's his 10th trip to the finals. He's played 2 Olympics, a World Championships, and FIBA Americas World Cup. So that's a lot of mileage on those legs. So typically, LeBron James finds the weakest offensive player to guard to save himself for offense. I don't know that he can do that in this series, especially if you decide to play JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. Because granted, when one of them on the floor, they have to mark Bam, which means that if they're on the floor with Anthony Davis, is probably going to have to align himself to Jay Crowder, because they don't want him marking Jimmy Butler. could likely take him off the dribble. There's hell well no way LeBron James is going to run behind Duncan Robinson and or Tyler Hero when he comes off the bench. And you don't want him to have to be navigating.
He want another off the screen option.
No. I mean, people talk about marking players like running about, as you would know, running through, running under, running over screens has to be one of the hardest defensive assignments in all of basketball.
Yep.
And then he doesn't want that with Goran Dragic, who's going to run him through a million screens. So, Neil, for me, going through all of that, it would seem that LeBron James is going to have to mark Jimmy Butler. Can LeBron James do that for minutes upon minutes in this series and then still lead your team? Because he's one of two playmakers that you have, the other being Rajon Rondo. If Jimmy Butler can be the aggressive person we saw towards the end of the conference finals and not the passive one that we saw early against Boston, then I'm actually very concerned with the amount of energy that LeBron is going to have to expend, because he cannot hope to have one of those 17, 18-point games and expect to win this series. I don't think so. I think it's going to take one of those Herculean efforts to get past Miami, as you just mentioned how great a defensive team Miami is. There is nothing that tells me that this series is going to go 5 games. This is a 6 or 7 game series. And you would say, well, with everything that said, you'd figure I am going to say that Miami is going to win this series in 6 or 7. Pump the brakes on that, hold on. I do believe that the Lakers pull this out in 7 games. And if it goes to 7 games, they have to say Lakers, obviously, because they have the 2 best players on the floor in the series. LeBron James is excellent at closeout/elimination games. I think he is the all-time leader in NBA points when it comes to elimination games. But one thing that cannot be overlooked, Neil, is that this series is very, very, very personal.
But
more personal.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your point. Sorry.
Even more personally, Golden State, and I'll tell you why, Larry. I mean, Neil, here calling Larry because I'm probably talking directly to Larry. I think a lot of people forgot when LeBron James left Miami in 2014 that Pat Riley publicly called him out and said, this is not the time to run man up and lead us through these turbulent times. You can't just run through every door that's open. LeBron James has responded to those comments. He didn't call Pat Riley by name, but he said one of the things in him leaving Miami was that there were people who he trusted with his personal stuff and then came back and stabbed him in the back. And I'm quite sure he means Pat Riley. This is personal for LeBron James. And I do not see a pumped-up, engaged LeBron James losing what? This would be a 7th finals? No, I don't see that. I think that you're going to get the best LeBron James.
You said a 7th final?
Yeah, he's 3-6 records. So I can't see.
You mean the wins? Oh, the wins lost.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So that being said, I love Miami. Miami has more depth. Miami has better shooting. Miami's a better defensive team perimeter-wise. I love the individual matchups that Miami provides for the best players in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I like the fact that Miami can confuse teams with zones. But in that, the Lakers have 2 wise and savvy floor generals who, unlike Boston, will not be confused by a 2-3 zone. They know either put a screen on ball on the one of the guards, go downhill, or get AD or a forward to come at that free throw line and collapse the zone. So I don't think a zone is going to bother the Lakers much. After all that long-winded argument from me, Lakers in 7.
I was just about to say. So for me, what I would say is that I think another unique thing that's going to be very interesting here, like if it was an ordinary, no pandemic, no bubble, I would happily say Lakers will dominate this series, right? But you know what scares me the most? Out of everything that we've just talked about, it scares me that there really is no home court advantage in these finals. Right?
There's none whatsoever.
Right? And the Miami Heat seem to thrive in, there's no travel, there are no hostile fans. It really is focusing on what's happening on the court in the moment and making sure that everybody buys in and does what they need to do to secure the victory. And when they look down the Lakers bench, going down from 80 all the way down, I question the mental toughness and focus of the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, I don't expect Miami to run trash talk or anything like that, but they're the type of team to make it very hard for you to score. They're going to make you earn everything you get. And for AD, I know he has to be because he has to start. All know I hope he's watching film and understanding that double team is going to come. He's going to have to get it out of the post. All of that easy eats that he had in Denver, all them nuggets that he ate. He know that they come in, come Miami. He will get his, but he knows very well that he will see a lot of double teams whenever he catches that ball, as you like to say, in the pinch post or even.
So Neil, I just brought up the point that this will be a personal series for LeBron James. Obviously, having played for the Miami Heat between 2010 to 2014. As part of that, do you think that Miami has any sort of tactical advantages, considering that Eric Spoelstra did coach LeBron James for 4 seasons, knows him particularly well, and we can say, arguably, that LeBron, the best of LeBron, was spent in Miami?
I don't know if I would necessarily say there's any real advantage there. Yes, he may know some of his tendencies or anything like that, but let's be honest, with the amount of tape and footage out there and the amount of studying that these guys do, the coaching staff and everything like that, I mean, I think that whatever is to be known is already known by him and his coaching staff, and that will permeate to the players. So yes, he did have that advantage of playing against LeBron James. Playing with coaching LeBron James. Back in the early 2010s. But to be fair, I don't think that's going to be a tangible advantage. I think that he may understand certain nuances in terms of the times he likes to kind of pull out his handbrake or the time he likes to go, understanding when it would be goal time for him, when it would be time for him to coast, when would be the perfect time to strike. For example, like when he normally plays in the first quarter, he comes out and he gets an extended break, usually between the quarters. So like in the first quarter, coming on to the third half to the third left in the quarter, he would usually get a break, and that would extend into the second quarter, and then going into the third and fourth, that same thing, especially going into the fourth, he usually gets a long run depending on how close the game is. So he would know, for example, that he just went out the game. Now is the time to strike, to pressure the ball, to really push tempo and get points on the board. And that will force LeBron James into coming back. In terms of tendencies with how he likes to guard and certain matchups he likes to take on, I mean, he may know that as well. But as I said, tape is going to be studying and being prepared for your opponent, watching video and all that footage. I think that would prepare them more so than any previous knowledge that Spoelstra would have had on.
I have to agree, Neil. Particularly in this technological age, there's just too much video and footage of these players. So it's nothing that Eric Spoelstra knows about LeBron James. I feel that other opposing coaches don't already know. And if these opposing coaches have struggled mightily to stop LeBron James, despite the technology being out there, all the footage, and they're knowing LeBron James's tendencies, then I must agree with you. I don't think that Spo has any distinct advantages having coached LeBron James before. What I will say, though, if there is an advantage that Spoelstra has, and I know you missed this, is that Spoelstra is accustomed of coaching Frank Vogel left, right, up, down, center, wherever. He has done it so many times during their battles in Eastern Conference when Vogel was at Indiana. And I have to tell myself, if I'm Eric Spoelstra, I'm like, oh, well, I know this guy and I know his tendencies and I know I'm accustomed beating him. So I'm going to put my chest up there and say, there's nothing new that you're going to bring. No, there are probably no wrinkles that I haven't already seen, and I'm accustomed of coaching you. Granted, it was when I had LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. But the reality is, I am no huge fan of Frank Vogel, and if I'm accustomed beating a guy over and over again, that gives me a certain level of confidence going into this series. So I'd say there's just so many advantages going to Miami's favor, and I would say definitely the coaching advantage is one. This is the guy, Eric Spoelstra, who has won 2 titles and now is back to his 5th NBA Finals. And this is Frank Vogel's first. Granted, I expect LeBron James really to be the guy coaching once he's on the floor, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
So speaking of stuff in Miami, Neil, I don't think we can talk about the Miami Heat and their return to the NBA Finals without, making a big deal of Jimmy Butler coming to be a part of this Heat culture. So I want to ask you, Neil, in your mind, do you think, or who do you put more responsibility of this somewhat quick turnaround for the Miami Heat, because they would have missed the playoffs last season?
Mm-hmm.
The arrival of Jimmy Butler, or do you put this on the Miami Heat organization itself?
Well, I think this is a combination of both, right? I think if I would say this is maybe 60% Miami culture and organization, or maybe 65% the front office, but 35% of Jimmy Butler. I think it's a match made in heaven. I think we've all heard all of the analysts and all the pundits say that this is a match made in heaven. We all know about the stories surrounding the culture of the Miami Heat. They expect nothing short of greatness. They want you to be in peak physical condition. They want you to study the game of basketball. They want you to leave your egos outside the door. And
basketball.
Oh, don't do that. But yes, leave your ego at home, because as a guy would say, some people bruise easily. But the truth of the matter is, the Heat is a great organization. They've always gotten the best out of their players, regardless of their skill level or talent level or superstardom. From role players to LeBron James, they've always gotten the best out of the players there. And that is a tribute to Pat Riley. I think more so, you need to say Pat Riley has made Miami. He is the culture in Miami. And I think that is going to be there to stay. Jimmy Butler, now going to him, that's a match made in heaven, because Jimmy Butler loves the challenge. He loves being in the mud. He loves working hard. He loves, grinding and putting in the effort to get things done. I think he's the type of player that would love every day to go and wake up and make sure that he's eating right the day before, so that he could go and stand up on that scale and prove to Pat Riley that he is there and he's committed. I think that he's that kind of player that will push other players to give that same level of excellence. I think not only is he a leader that would act by example, teach by example, lead by example, but I think he's one of these players too that would tell you straight, even if it is in a joking manner. I think he would be one of these players that would say, well, yeah, you 2.5 pounds overweight today, and you had a fun night last night. That can't happen, because he would ride players essentially, right? And some of the things he does to keep camaraderie, in the bubble we were hearing that he started coffee business, Big Face Coffee, and certain players have either bought into it or made jokes about it. But I think he's that kind of player that would keep everybody light, but still when it comes to business, it is business. So from Pat Riley, I almost think that Jimmy Butler is Pat Riley in dark skin, to be honest, in terms of his commitment to excellence and making sure certain things take over and go over, and every day committing yourself to the game of basketball. So if I were to put it into a percentile, I would say it's 65% to 70% Miami organization, aka Pat Riley, versus 30 to 35% Jimmy Butler. It's a match made in heaven, and I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. If the Lakers were not in the finals, I'd be rooting for Miami, in all honesty, to see them overcome whomever came out of the West. But unfortunate for Miami.
So I must agree with you, Neil, and I'm going to double down even further and actually say credit the Miami Heat organization, especially because they got a guy in Jimmy Butler who, as you said extremely well there just now, fits their entire culture. Jimmy was berated in 3 different teams for the type of personality he has, type of hard nose, get on you. But as we've come to understand, it's tough love, and it's not that Jimmy's not asking you, to quote a particular Michael Jordan, he's not asking you to do something that he's not going to do. He wants to win and that's all it was. It was nothing personal. Jimmy is just what you would call the typical Miami Heat player. But it goes past Jimmy for me in this turnaround simply because, as I said, Pat Riley made sure, and I guess with the help of the recruitment with Dwayne Wade, to get a Miami Heat player. But as I said, it goes past Jimmy because, as you've seen, you get 2 undrafted rookies to play in his squad. I think Kendrick Nunn would have gotten rookie year votes. He started much of the year until, I think he fell off with injury or confidence, and then Goran Dragic took his starting spot at point guard. Then you got somebody, Duncan Robinson, a guy who's not drafted. You bring him up from the G League, and all Duncan Robinson does is lead the league in 3-pointers. You draft somebody like Tyler Hero, you take him at the 14th spot. And, he was not this good, or he was not even this good as a shooter in college. And yet here you are seeing him in pivotal games, especially Eastern Conference Finals as a rookie, dropping 37 points, like showing that the moment is not too big for him. So to be able to get these gems all in a year to add to Jimmy Butler, also Bam Adebayo. Bam, again, is not like a top 5 pick. I think they got him anywhere between 10 and 15. Also, he did not show, most scouts didn't understand or didn't see the talents that he had put out, didn't realize how good Bam was when he was at Kentucky. And here you have a guy now who is going to become, in my eyes, a perennial all-star. He already made the all-star team this year. And he's the perfect center in this age. He's not a 7-foot banger by any means, but he's so adept, fleet-footed, able to switch pick and rolls, to switch out to mark smaller forwards or even guards. And that's what you want in today's NBA, as you know, Neil, so he can run out to get the perimeter, get back to the ring, try and cover the rim, as Jason Tatum found out in game 2, unfortunately.
Hard way.
The hard way. So, yeah, this is the Miami Heat culture that they've gone out to get players who are gritty, who are grimy, who will do whatever it takes to win, who will take Jimmy's, hard love, tough coaching, or whatever not. But this is no means me taking any credit away from Jimmy Butler, because, when you look at his impact on franchises, you just can't undersell it, Neil. Look at Chicago. Chicago, since he has left, has not gone back to the playoffs. Minnesota only went to the playoffs once in the post-Kevin Garnett era. I'm not even saying Kevin Love. The post-Kevin Garnett era. So we're talking, Kevin Garnett left in 2007. They have only made the playoffs once in that time, Neil. And that one time was when Jimmy Butler spent that season in Minnesota. Then he went to Philadelphia. He's left, and Philadelphia, as we see, are in shambles. You just cannot, you just can't put a price tag on the impact in terms of winning that Jimmy Butler brings to an organization. And we hear how he's such a bad teammate. But if he's such a bad teammate, Neil, then why every time he leaves a situation that these teams are decidedly worse? And I'm not talking about a bit worse. I'm talking about markedly worse. Chicago has not gone back to playoffs. Minnesota,
but not across you. But I think this goes back to the culture, because if every place that Jimmy stopped and he was told that he was a bad teammate and they needed to get rid of him and everything like that, and now all of these teams are in shambles, it speaks to me about the culture that was already there when he was there, that it was not up to scratch. And the fact that he's there with an organization that does have that culture of, this is not club fed. This is literally, we are here to win championships. We're not here to make the first round. We're not here to win the most games in the regular season. We're not here to make the conference finals. We are here to win. We're not even here to get to the finals. We are here to win championships. All of those other teams that you talked about, they were content to just get to the playoffs, or even be in the hunt for the playoffs in certain instances. So, I can let you finish. Yeah, it comes back down to the culture, man. It comes back down to culture. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Jimmy. It was something wrong with the culture of the teams that he was at.
Yeah, this comes down to culture. It shows he even spoke about certain team meetings he was in Philadelphia. And he said he didn't even know who was in charge. How are you having this situation? And I remember the criticism he got when in the offseason he chose Miami. A lot of people said, "Oh, he doesn't want to win. He just wants to go to team to be the man or be his own player." And well, look, no, like, where's that criticism? Like, as I said, this everyone looked at Philadelphia as the supposed title contender, but look at where Philadelphia is now, and just suppose that to Miami, having missed the playoffs a year in front and now in the NBA Finals with, to me, and not just there at the NBA Finals, but with a legitimate shot at winning an NBA title. It just goes to show, like, this man wanted a professional culture and a professional culture that was geared towards winning championships.
Yep.
And I think that provides me with the perfect segue into our next topic, moving away slightly from the NBA Finals and to Marsh's team. Now we're talking about the Miami Heat and their culture towards winning NBA Finals or winning NBA titles. When you look now at the Boston Celtics, they have been there or thereabouts, knocking on the door. They have been to 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals, but have not been able to get over the hump. Neil, I want to ask you, they were favored in this series, especially by me. What went wrong that the Boston Celtics could not get past the Miami Heat?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors, right? I mean, I can start with Boston first. I think that even though they do have prolific scorers and they do have very gritty defense, especially players like Marcus Smart, the guy, what's his name, Robert Williams, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Robert Williams.
Yeah, right. You had Brad Waterman. You had some. I mean, their team is deep. Their team is nice. Their team is gritty. Their team can play a certain style in a certain way whenever you want. They can play big. They can play small. They can, play iso ball. They can play several different things. I think the problem is that first things first, as you mentioned earlier, when they saw zone, they didn't know. They literally. It just was when you have a team that is defensively adept at playing a zone as well as trapping certain players to get the ball to certain players' hands, then you're going to have a lot of problems, right? And I think Boston, Brad Stevens specifically, I think he may have been a bit too, what do I want to say here, casual. I don't even want to say casual, but to me, he was not. I can't see him as being the forceful type of coach to say, you know what, this doesn't make sense. I think he's more a manager. I think he would manage egos and not get the best out of these players in terms of understanding, this iso ball thing ain't working. I mean, in this series that just went in the Eastern Conference Finals, I saw there were times where Boston got down, 5 points or something like that, and it went into straight iso ball, whether it be Jason Tatum, whether it be, Jaylen Brown, whether it be Gordon Hayward, they went into this iso ball. Even Marcus Smart, who all of a sudden felt he hit 2 threes and he's a world beater. So no, the ball has to come to him in 14 seconds and he's to dribble out the clock. So there are things like that. I think that would have stopped them from getting there. But to be honest, it was to really point a finger, Justin, to see which is of all the reasons why they are not in the finals and they're having such problems with their success, especially this year. It's Miami Heat. The Miami Heat is a damn good team. And, as I mentioned earlier, the factors of the bubble, the factors of no hostile crowd. Miami Heat, as we just signed their praises, they have a coach that is willing to take chances on the defensive end and have the players commit and focus on doing certain things defensively to disrupt the offense. It is not just going by the numbers or it's not going by previous situations that you've coached in. It is as simple as, Jason Tatum is hot. He's hitting some threes, get him off the perimeter, double team that. Or let's say the guy, Robert Williams, he's been very impactful in the middle of the key, get the ball out of his hands, clog up the key. Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart would try posting up a couple times and they would have gotten some baskets. You know what? Cut that out. Trap that and get that ball out of their hands. They are content with the ball rotating and rotating and rotating and rotating and getting a very bad shot, or not even a bad shot, but at least a shot late in the whistle with 3 seconds left, 2 seconds left with the pressure on to make that shot. Yes, you may be very good at hitting the corner three, but are you great at hitting that corner three with less than 2 seconds on the clock? And I think that is where they struggle, the Boston Celtics, and not. It's almost like they were shell shocked by Miami. Yes, they knew it was coming, but it was almost like they were so active on the defensive end. Miami, they were so aggressive on the defensive end. They were shell shocked, and then when you add into the certain offensive changes that they made, like look at Bam Adebayo in that last game. My goodness, 37 and 22. 37 and 14. Sorry, he was a monster. Right? They just had no answer for him going to the ring. I mean, he might get a rebound, go coast to coast, and push the action and get 2 points and a foul. They literally don't know what to do with that. So I think they need to go back to the drawing board and kind of. I don't even think they need new pieces. I think that team is there, but it's their mentality and their buy-in. It's like they are a hair away from being a Miami Heat team of this year, but they have to refocus their mentality and really kind of hunker down and understand, yo, this is not Jason Tatum's team. This is not Jaylen Brown's team. This is not even Brad Stevens' team. This is everyone's team, and it takes a collective effort to get the job done.
There are some points I agree with you there, Neil, and you brought up a very interesting one, because I think Boston's problem is more philosophical than anything. When I did the preview for this, and I originally called Boston winning in 6 games, I kind of look at the individual matchups, forgetting at the end of the day that this is a team game. And one of the biggest problems I see, just know that, this core will remain the same for quite a while.
Yep.
Their 3 best players are not natural playmakers. And that's not the situation with Miami. When you look at Miami, Jimmy Butler is a very willing passer, extremely good one. Bam Adebayo is one of the best passing big men. And I'd say he's probably right now the second best passing big man in the league behind Nikola Jokic that we just saw against your Lakers. And then there's Goran Dragic. All 3 of these, Tyler Hero, are all natural playmakers. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker all are jump shooting scorers. Jason Tatum I must admit, he has gotten a hell of a lot better drawing fouls, getting to the rim, and shooting free throws. So you've seen the maturation and the growth of his game in that regard. And he has become a better passer. But the reality is, those 3 are not natural playmakers. And it's problematic when your 3 best players, none of your 3 best players are your best playmakers, because then the ball is going to start with them and they're going to look to score. Especially you've seen it with Kemba Walker particularly. He will come down, come over the top of a high pick and roll and shoot that long mid-range to 3-point jump shot. That's what he wants to do. The problem comes, Neil, and I explained, is that, as you said, when you bring that zone now, what we know as basketballers that play against zones naturally in FIBA basketball, part of the way to defeat that is punching and creating for somebody else. But these players just want to shoot. So for them, it is come down the court, 1 pass, 2 pass, shoot. And that's not going to beat the zone, because the zone is not going to have a lot of work to do. Naturally, what you want, Neil, as we addressed earlier, you want somebody to attack that zone and make and collapse it to either get, as Miami would do, get alley-oops for somebody rolling to the middle, which would be Bam, or kick out, make 2 extra passes for a corner shooter or shooter on the wing. Marcus Smart and Gordon Hayward can do that. But those aren't the players you want punching your zone, because they're not your best players. Your best players are indeed Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum in some order. But they are not those players. Those are natural scorers. And until that they develop into better playmakers, that will be the problem that they see. So we saw against Toronto in the series before that, they had a hell of a lot of problems solving Toronto's zone, and then again against Miami. And especially then when you're not a natural playmaker and you're not accounting for the weak side forward in the zone, and he's coming and picking off those cross-court passes, those are going to lead to easy buckets against good, well-coached defensive teams. And then you saw the situation, you alluded to it, Neil. They could not hold on to big leads. They had leads, and I mean double-digit lead. And I want to say 3 of the 6 games, 3 or 4 of the 6 games that they played. And again, once Miami hunkered down on defense, start to load up on the paint or load up against these players that just want to go one-on-one, then they had problems scoring. And again, when the turnovers come, because these are not natural passers, then teams that let it get with the transition, and I'm about to tell you, they are fortunate that they didn't get past Miami, because you could imagine turning over the ball against the Lakers. My word, like that's hell of a nightmare. So
Yep.
I'm telling you, Neil, like, I think their problem really is philosophical. I don't know how they're going to solve that. It comes down to the maturation of their three best players. Kemba Walker is already in his prime. I don't know how much better he can get as a playmaker, but Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to have to fill out that part of their game where they become better passers. They're not natural passers, so they'll never become LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Chris Paul level passers, but they're going to have to become better playmakers, as we've seen, especially somebody like Kawhi Leonard done over the past season. They're going to have to get better if Boston is going to take that next leap, or we are going to see a situation where Boston remains losing Eastern Conference final after Eastern Conference final, because we have to remember, even if they think that individually they're better than Miami, Milwaukee's still there. Giannis is still there, at least for another year. No, next season they're going to have to deal with a healthy Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And those two players already are better than any player that they have on their roster. So they better figure out quickly, how do we get our best players to be playmakers, so we come across as a team like Miami and not a set of individual talents that just like to score on their own.
Yep, agreed.
And I love how this discussion is just rolling, because it allows me to segue into the next question I have for you, Neil. As we're talking about the future of the Boston Celtics, Neil, and we just mentioned the Denver Nuggets, in your estimation, with the collection of young talent that each team has, who do you think is in a better position to win a title in the next 3 years, the Boston Celtics or the Denver Nuggets?
No, obviously, I know this question was coming because we would have had, these questions to prepare for. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I don't have an answer for this at this time. But I'll try as I can. So I can only assume that you're asking me which team is better constructed to win the championship going forward. Is that can I assume that that's what you're asking? Because
Yeah.
when I started to think about that question, I'm thinking about you got Golden State coming back around the place. You got you can have in the East. You don't know what not Boston. You don't know what Philly can do. You don't know what Giannis is gonna do. Like, there's so many things up in the air. So I guess I was all over the place and thinking about it. But if we were talking about how the teams are constructed, I'll have to say that at the end, it comes down to putting the ball in the basket. And I think that from what we have seen this year from the Denver Nuggets, from Jamal Murray, from Jokic, from even Jeremy Grant, from all Michael Porter Jr., and then we still have to see what is going to happen with Bobo in terms of his development and his emergence. I still believe that Denver is more constructed from like, if I were to choose both franchises and I would say, okay, looking at these teams top to bottom, what do I have to add or subtract or whatever that I have to do more? I think I'll have to do more work with Boston than I would have to do with the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets' only problem is their interior defense. It's terrible. Their defense is bad, right? Now, if you were to add a player that can, help to clog up the key and be a rim protector, or even someone that is a 3-and-D guy, can run people off the perimeter, then I think Denver will be there and thereabouts. The truth of the matter is Boston's problem, as we just spoke about, is their philosophy, their mentality. And honestly, I don't know how it's up to the players, right? They have the pieces, but the sad reality is I don't know if those players can translate into championships. Now, we saw how Jamal Murray and Jokic and those guys played coming back from 2-3-1 deficits. Even though they were beaten 4-1 by the Lakers, they still played really well. But I think Denver, if they were to get the right piece or two. I think they have the mentality. I think it comes down to their philosophy and their mentality. I think they have a good coach. I think they understand certain things, but they need some sort of defensive-minded understanding of how to deal. You know what? Let me change myself. I'm gonna backtrack here and say I don't even think that they need an extra piece because that team, if they had the right philosophy around them, they're good to go. More so than the Boston Celtics. You got to understand, they got Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray had the most points in these playoffs total, right? You have Jokic, who is, for a 7-footer, he is amazing in terms of his passing ability, his ability to score. God awful on defense, but hey, God didn't give him everything. You have Jeremy Grant, who is a guy that can make it dirty. You got Plumlee, who's the same type of player. You have Michael Porter Jr. that literally said after game one loss again in the Western Conference Finals, he needs more touches. He needs the ball more in his hand. And yes, it was out of place. He shouldn't have said it at that time. But you know what? He wasn't wrong. He got the ball and he scored the ball a lot. So I think they have the players. I think they have the pieces. It comes down to philosophy. I think Boston, they have a lot more aging players. Marcus Smart is getting older. As you mentioned, what's the boy named Kemba Walker? He is in his prime. He's going to start to decline just now. And their younger pieces like Brad Wanamaker and Robert Williams, their younger pieces are not as good as the younger pieces for Denver, right? So yeah, I just don't know what to say. I mean, it's a tough call, but if I were to choose, right, the only thing that will separate them is the conferences that they're in. Because for Denver, unfortunately, next year it can be rough because I can only assume the Jazz are going to get better. I can only assume that Portland is going to get better. I can only assume that Golden State can re-enter the chat. The Lakers going to be thereabouts. You still have Devin Booker, who was mauling in this bubble, so you don't know what they're going to do as well. The Clippers, oh my goodness, I forgot about the Clippers, right? Boston only really got to worry about the Nets coming back, Miami, and that's another thing too. Is Miami going to be the same team next year when everything resumes to normal, goes back to normal? So I mean, I can say Denver, but I don't think either of them going to win the championship in the time soon. If we can be honest,
I'll hedge that bet and go with Denver for the very same reason that I said what was wrong with Boston.
So wait. Let me understand something here, Justin. Hold on. Let me understand something. So Marsha isn't here. Are we agreeing? We getting along? Is that what really going on here?
It's not making for a good show. I guess that we're just disagreeing with Marsha, who's off site and in the comments.
Rep was not hard, yeah.
So I'm going to go with Denver for the reason that I showed what was wrong with Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. What made Denver so hard to defend for the Clippers and Utah in the previous two rounds is that their best players, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, are not just scorers, but they're willing passers and extremely good passers who make the players around them better. So you saw flashes of Jeremy Grant scoring ball, Monte Morris, as you mentioned, Michael Porter Jr., who had a lot of flashes, and we know that is the potential star in the making. Just about injuries that he has to worry about. But
I know he has to worry about. Sorry to cross you, Justin, but he got to worry about defense. He got to worry about defense. That man is a turnstile on defense.
Well, Kyle Kuzma too, and he's the NBA Finals. So
all right. This is not about the Los Angeles Lakers and Kyle Kuzma.
We'll get there eventually on Sunday, but they are such good passers. So you have so much to account for. You just can't sit down and say, all right, I'm going to stop these players from scoring, because as the Clippers found out, when you try to take the ball with Jokic's hand, that's problematic because he was just finding open players and that's it was a surgical dissection that man made of the Clippers in those last three games. Like Nikola Jokic was just so good and precise with his passing, shots. But I mean, you also know he's an extremely good playmaker. And when your best players and your best scorers are also your best passers as well, that gives defenses fits. Granted, I mean, what helped you is that you have the likes of a LeBron James. I mean, your best players are also your best defensive players. So Anthony Davis is very good at protecting ring and guarding. And even he had problems defending Jokic. LeBron James did a great job towards the end of the series against Jamal Murray. But as we've seen for stretches in the Eastern Conference Finals, Boston, because of their predictable ISO basketball and going one-on-one, their players are easy to defend, or at least the team is easy to defend, because if you help off of Jason Tatum, he's not going to make, the greatest of passes leading to assists, and especially not with Jaylen Brown or Kemba Walker. So I think because that Denver's players, best players are not just great scorers, but great playmakers as well. I think that sets up Denver so well in the future, because even if the parts around them rotate, I think that they'll hold on to Michael Porter Jr. But like, you lose a Jeremy Grant and then you bring in somebody else, or you lose a Monte Morris, or whatever piece that you lose, Gary Harris, and et cetera, et cetera. You lose these players, and you can fit in players around them, role players, because your two best players are exceptional passers, and that makes for that helps to make the players around them better, and an overall team concept. So I'm not sure if that answers my question for you, Neil, but it answers my question for me.
No, it does. I think we're in agreement here. In the end, as you said, Boston does play. They don't play team basketball. They get the ball with 10 or so seconds left, 9 seconds, 8 seconds, and they're looking to push the action, dance on the perimeter, and get to the ring or get a shot. Whereas Denver, they're the type of team that is going to outside of Michael Porter Jr., who is young. But Jamal Murray, he's going to punch and kick. Jokic is going to get it and kick. Like they're just going to force a lot of action to happen, especially at the early shot clock. And they're playing more team basketball and get the ball to the right players. So I think we're in agreement. Marsha, you need to come back. Yeah, you need to come back, Marsha.
You really need to come back.
This buddy kumbaya thing is not making for good ratings at all.
It really isn't. And so, speaking of punching with seconds left on the clock, we only have seconds left on the show, Neil. Stick with us, though, people, because, as you said, the NBA Finals are coming up. And what else is coming up is a special live on location show that is right. We are heading back to Bubba's Sports Bar for the NBA Finals, Game 3 to be precise. So you can get your live pre-game action right here. Me, Neil, Marsha, the entire gang, because yes, Marsha will be back for that. The entire gang will be live on location at Bubba's in a pre-game show breaking down Game 3, not Game 1 or Game 2, but Sunday's Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Neil is hoping to have a 2-love lead then. Larry will be hoping that Miami has that. So be there. We will be there from, I think, about 4 o'clock. And the show will actually start 6 to 7 as a pre-game show, because we know the finals start 7:30 Eastern time. So meet us in Bubba's. But if you can't get down to Barbados, like everyone else in the COVID-19 related world would love to, if you can't get down to Bubba's, don't worry. We're still here, right here on YouTube. So just follow us here if you can't get down to Bubba's. Even if you're in Barbados and you just can't get down, you can watch the show live. You can also follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook for any updates of that live show. I can't wait, Neil. I don't know about you. I know you're going to probably be back in your Lakers gear.
I can't wait simply because, there's a dream come true. Being able to talk basketball in Bubba's with my Lakers in the finals. And you know what? My birthday's coming up too. So I'm hoping that they could get the championship come my birthday. But yeah, man, it's gonna be exciting. We want everybody to come out in your fine gear, rep your teams. We can have giveaways, we can have engagement. Just come out, man. It's gonna be a great time, not just for the show, but also the vibe and everything in Bubba's and surrounding the show. So come out and let's have a good time, man. Watch the Lakers get that 3-love win. 3-love lead.
I am so sorry. I did indeed forget. Please come rep your fan gear. Doesn't mean that the place is to be rammed with Lakers fans, please, but come out in your fan gear.
It's all right.
Come out in your fan gear. We're going to have a lot of Appleton Estate giveaways as usual, fan engagement, and indeed, once again, we're going to have some lucky fans, and not one, but lucky fans come on live on set to give their views on what's going on, predictions, and who's going to win, etc. So as I said, this Sunday, live on location in Bubba's once again. So you can either come down to Bubba's here in Barbados or just stick here on YouTube. So for Neil Hoyt, that is Neil Hoyt over there.
That is Justin Marvel right there.
I am Justin Marvel. Thank you for tuning in to this Just In, and come back into this space 6 o'clock this Sunday as we preview Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for watching.
I don't have a mark on my face, and my upset son in Lisbon, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the kingdom out of here just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.